Hello, lovelies. Today we're taking a look at Novitiate. This is a very interesting film in itself. It more tackles a historical period. I believe this was set in between 1962 to 1965. There were a lot of reforms that were coming into the Catholic Church known as Vatican II, which pretty much, just to very briefly summarize, were changes that were meant to make the Catholic Church seem more welcoming. So, for example, nuns could choose to dress normally. They didn't have to wear the habit or the veil. They were no longer to be considered nuns, but just regular members of society. They did not have to partake in ritual, what would you say, punishment, whether it's doing penance for a sin that they had committed, or imposed starvation. So there were a lot of changes made to the church, as well as the morning text, whether it was the priest conducting morning mass. To my understanding, the priest was to read in Latin with his back turned. There were numerous other changes as well, but I just kind of wanted to touch briefly on a couple of them just to give an idea of what Vatican II was or was meant to do. But this is the story of a young girl, Kathleen, who, having been sent to private school by her mother, decides to become a nun, which is very difficult on the mom because they're not really religious people. She just kind of sent her to a private school on a scholarship that was being offered, so it was a free, good education, and her daughter just kind of took to it. So the family wasn't heavily religious, and the mother's pretty much just confused by all of this. The young girl, Kathleen, her family life really isn't that great. Her parents bicker and use foul language in front of her, and I mean, really, no 12-year-old, 16-year-old, what have you, should have to listen to such language or observe that behavior. Adults should handle their business privately, in my opinion. But whether or not that was a motivator for her to leave home and join a convent, I don't know. I can only speculate. My assumption is potentially yes. Just to have better surroundings, to be filled and surrounded with the love of Christ, and to serve a higher purpose, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. And the film does touch on numerous topics as well. So, for example, the regimen is extremely strict that the young women are to go through. So, for example, other than just being extremely devout, they are not to face one another, to keep their heads downturned. I forget what the term was, but they're not supposed to make eye contact with one another, as their thoughts are to remain on Christ and serving the Lord at all times. And there really isn't supposed to be any physical contact or any real friendship. The women are supposed to seek solace and comfort in their Lord rather than one another. So it's very, very strict, maybe just very archaic to how we know the church today. But I love this little just kind of history, or this period piece. It was very intriguing to me, and it brought to light a lot of things that I hadn't really considered or realized myself. For example, Kathleen's mother is struggling immensely with her daughter having left home to become a nun, and she, to a degree, blames herself and wants to know if she did something bad or wrong as a mother. And I had never really considered how family members or friends of a person that decide to enter a convent, how they're affected, or what exactly it is that they may struggle with. So I kind of like that they touched on this, because it gave me something new to think about. It gave me some perspective. Of course, the film being centered on young girls, we also go through topics such as sexuality, self-exploration, questioning faith, There are numerous themes throughout this film, and it's a very intelligent film, very well written. It does run at about 2 hours and 3 minutes, which in my opinion it could have been a little bit shorter. It could have been maybe an hour and a half, but it really doesn't, in my opinion, it really doesn't have any slow points, at least just because I have an interest to a degree in religious studies, so it held my interest, and it had a lot of high drama elements, great character development. So I thought it was a very good story. It does. It, just because they're so self-isolated, they're not even supposed to hold hands or embrace. So it does explore things like the need for human interaction, and as is well known, humans are a social animal. We need to interact and be with other people. So we see how it affects the young girls and how some of them struggle with it. At one point in time, the Reverend Mother even sends some girls home because she feels that they're becoming too close and they should be keeping their focus on their purpose there in the convent, which is to serve God. So they're sent away, and she's very strict. In my opinion, she in the beginning very much came off as and just once again taking the whole Vatican I, Vatican II into context, and what this older generation nun had was accustomed to. It was a difficult change for her as well, and we see her struggle as she's accepting these changes. She receives a packet that she's supposed to read over and just kind of move the congregation or the convent in this new direction. And word gets out that she's not doing this, so she is paid a visit by the Archbishop, and she's pretty much told, if you don't get with the program, you're going to be replaced. But how much of a stickler that she is, you can see that she is pained by this emotionally, and to a degree she feels that she's been abandoned by God. She's lost and confused, and early on in the film she takes out these frustrations on the girls. There is a period referred to as Grand Silence, in which the novitiates, or the women in training to become nuns, are not to speak. They're supposed to be in meditation. So I believe it's from the hours of 9 p.m. through 10 a.m. that they're not supposed to speak. A young girl makes the mistake and says good morning to the Reverend Mother, and she punishes the girl by making her crawl and pray the Hail Mary. When the girl once again speaks the prayer out loud, she is reprimanded, which renders her to tears, and we later find out that she was sent home. I previously used the example of the two girls which were friends, which became too close. They were sent home as well. And in the midst of all of this, Kathleen is questioning God's love and just wanting to feel his, I guess, just confusing the need for human interaction with actual physical contact. She feels distanced from God, and she feels the need to punish herself. There's also, as I mentioned, an incident of self-exploration. So she self-flogs herself to punish herself for all of this, and she begins to starve herself, which the Reverend Mother at one point in time compliments her. She says, you're one of our better nuns that I've seen in ages. But we have, eventually she tells her, well, there's this Vatican II thing going on, and you need to back off of this. You can't do this anymore. But she lets this go on for months before she actually says anything. And as stated, the Reverend Mother had her own problems going on. Our lead character, Kathleen, had her own problems going on. It's very plot heavy, the film. It's very good storytelling, in my opinion, but it's up to you whether or not you have the patience for a dramatic telling with just some some historical background. But to me, that was a lot of the interest in this film. I thought it was extremely well done, and if it's right up your alley or your cup of tea, I would recommend taking a look at it. You might actually really enjoy this film. But that is all I have for you guys today, and I will talk to you later.